Penguin Random House Audio presents A Good Provider is One Who Leaves, One Family and Migration in the 21st Century, by Jason Deparle, read for you by Fred Sanders. Home has its charms, and native land has its charms, but hunger, oppression, and destitution will dissolve these charms and send men in search of new countries and new homes. Frederick Douglass, 1869. A Good Provider is One Who Leaves. Pichi Portagana Salazar, 2006. Prologue. Finding Jesus in the Slums. 30 years ago, I was a young reporter in Manila with an interest in shanty towns, the warrens of scrap wood shacks that covered a third of the city and much of the developing world. I called the Philippines' most famous nun, who lived in a slum called Leverisa. Though I didn't say so, I was hoping she would help me move in. Sister Christine Tan was a friend of the new president, Cory Aquino, and busy on a commission rewriting the Constitution. "Call me back in a few months," she snapped. Hoping for a quicker audience, I explained that I worked with another nun in her order. Apparently, they weren't friends. "That's a mistake," she said. "Meet me tomorrow morning outside the Manila Zoo." Raised in affluence, educated in the United States, Sister Christine had gained her renown as a critic of Ferdinand Marcos, the American-backed dictator who had proclaimed martial law in 1972 and plundered the country, with the help of his shoe-happy wife, Imelda. "I hate their deceitfulness, their sham, their greed, their avarice, their lies, the deliberate trouncing of our rights and the burying of our souls," she once said. The Vatican had told her to tone things down. The police had threatened arrest. Sister Christine had defied them all and gone off to find Jesus in the slums. At 56, she had a smooth, grandmotherly face, which made her look gentle, though she wasn't. "Are you CIA? You wouldn't tell me if you were, would you?" she began. When she called herself anti-imperialist, it sounded like an accusation. "The poor are magnificent people, unlike the rich," she said. "But boarding in Leverisa wouldn't work. Most of the shanties lacked toilets, and Americans can't live without them. A host would feel obligated to serve pricey food. I'd be a burden." She denounced the United States for keeping military bases in the Philippines, then suddenly waved a hand above her head. "That's all up here," meaning her views of American policy. "Somehow we have to build links between the First World and the Third World." If I returned in a few days, she'd see what she could do. Sunk into a mudflat near Manila Bay, Leverisa held 15,000 people in a labyrinth of alleys behind the whitewashed walls of one of Imelda's old beautification campaigns. Children played beside listing shacks. Women squatted over tubs of laundry. Roosters crowed. Sanitation mostly meant flying saucers, bundles of waste wrapped in newspaper and flung in the surrounding canals. I figured that Sister Christine would use the time before my return to approach a potential host or two. Instead, she led me into the maze and auctioned me off on the spot. I knew just enough Tagalog to realize our first prospect was aghast. "Hindi puede, sister. It's not possible." The second candidate smiled more but ducked as rapidly. The third was too astonished to respond. Tita Comodas was 40 years old and sitting at her window in an old house dress, selling sugar and eggs. A scruffy American looking to rent floor space had the appeal of a biblical plague. Her thin patience exhausted, Sister Christine left. "If you don't want him, pass him on to someone else. And don't cook him anything special. If he gets sick, too bad." I don't know who was more frightened, Tita or me. Neighborhood entertainment was scarce. We drew a crowd. "Ask him if he eats rice. Ask him if he knows how to use a spoon. Ask him if he wants to marry a Filipina." Tita had a boisterous neighbor who fed her questions and whooped at the answers. But Tita struggled to see the humor. After all, it was her house. The reasons to decline were many. Her husband was working in Saudi Arabia. She was busy raising 5 kids. She already had 2 relatives sleeping on the floor. Her English was limited, and my Tagalog was worse. Who knew what problems a strange foreigner might cause? Then she surrendered to what she took as Sister Christine's request and said I could move in. I stayed on and off for 8 months and made a lifelong friend. The eldest of 11 children raised in a farm family. She had quit school after 6th grade and moved to Manila as a teenager to work in a factory. Marriage and children followed, with home a series of leverisa hovels, each as forlorn as the last. Her husband, Emmett, had hustled a job cleaning the pool at a government sports complex and held it for nearly 2 decades. On the spectrum of Filipino poverty, that alone marked him as a man of modest fortune. But a monthly salary of $50 wasn't enough to keep his family fed. Their eldest daughter had a congenital heart defect that turned her lips blue and fingernails black, and who needed care that he couldn't afford. After years of worrying over her frail physique, Emmett had dropped to his knees and asked God for a decision: take her or let him have her. God had answered in a mysterious way. Soon after, Emmett got an offer to clean pools in Saudi Arabia. He would make 10 times his Manila wage, but live 5,000 miles away in an Islamic autocracy when stories of abused laborers were rife. He accepted on the spot. By the time I arrived, years later, his daughter had more medicine and the shanty had a toilet. Up before dawn to cook the breakfast rice, Tita was a weary homemaker, trudging to the market every day and scrubbing her hands raw over laundry. But she was also a lieutenant in Sister Christine's Slum Improvement Group, a small army of housecoat revolutionaries that ran Bible studies, sold subsidized rice, joined political protests, and found strength in the nun's message, counterintuitive amid the squalor, that Jesus had a special love for the poor. Tita's life revolved around eggs. She bought 2,000 a week to sell in the group's co-op stores, and stacked them under a kitchen light in an attempt, only partly successful, to protect them from the rats. The enterprise was metaphoric. In the post-Marcos Philippines, her hopes and the country's were equally fragile. Despite a limited education, or perhaps because of it, Tita was full of questions. She read English newspapers with a Tagalog dictionary and asked me about the news. "Ano ang imperialismo?" she asked me. "I'm always hearing no to imperialism, but I don't know what means imperialism." Tita's oldest child was an indifferent student of modest ambition, who spent his spare time on the family farm. The second was sick. The 2 youngest boys were spindle-legged scamps, busy chasing roosters through the alleys. That left Tita's middle child, Rosalie, her confidence keeper and chief helpmate. A slight, shy, doe-eyed girl, mature beyond her 15 years, Rosalie was easy to overlook. Her religiosity cloaked her ambition. In addition to school and chores, she was a stalwart of Sister Christine's youth group. When it staged plays, Rosalie played the nun. Noting Rosalie's strength and faith, Sister Christine saw the makings of a real nun, but Rosalie had another idea. There was a nursing school near Leverisa, and the students looked smart and clean in their starched white dresses. Filipino nurses went far in life. Some went as far as the United States. In 1965, 6 years before Rosalie was born, Lyndon Johnson sat beside the Statue of Liberty and signed an immigration law he both celebrated as a civil rights landmark and dismissed as a measure of little consequence. Johnson said he was ending a cruel and enduring wrong by abolishing quotas from the 1920s that banned most non-white immigrants. Passed in an age of peak immigration, aimed at Southern and Eastern Europeans, the non-whites of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?